All right, it's been a while, but I have just came home from Jurassic World Dominion, and I am here to talk about that movie. But first, let me explain where I've been. I know I've been doing some other shows previously, like box office, week to week, and the Marvel ranking list. But recently, I found myself kind of putting a lot. I work a 40-hour job, and it was becoming a lot of time consuming to try and edit those things, work those things in, and then on my days off and stuff, put them through. It's something I could do. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy them. I love talking about that stuff, but I found myself not spending time where I wanted to, whether it be with friends or family. And I personally just gonna take a little reshift back and just make this channel just movie reviews. I was testing myself out in May to see how I liked the new spreading out of stuff like the box office and rankings and stuff. But I found that it was a little bit too much. Where I was like, you know what, I don't want to have to at this moment on my weekends or on my short Wednesday when I work, or even like for instance, I came back from a trip in Spokane and I felt like I had to film like 5 or 6 videos in a span of like 4 days just to catch up on things that I missed. And I took the last week and really enjoyed myself the last basically 2 weeks, to be perfectly honest. Um, Another part of this is that I've been watching some TV shows. The Boys season three, first 3 episodes last week, 4 episodes of Obi-Wan, all of the first 7 episodes of Stranger Things season four. Even watching the first season, second season with a friend who's never seen it. Um, so been spending my time other places and just staying with movies and following up on the box office, which Top Gun's been amazing so far, record breaking stuff there. But I think for the moment, I'm just going to stick to these reviews. I'm going to try to still see as many movies as I can and give these reviews and keep this main process here. I apologize if anybody was expecting me to follow up on the box office or rankings list, but for the moment, and I'm just gonna stick to the movie reviews and maybe trickle in some TV show reviews as I go, because I have thoughts on some of them as well. Particularly how great Stranger Things was and how disappointing and poor I think Obi Wan Kenobi has been as a show. And not to segue, but speaking of some things that can be disappointing and poor, I would say only half of that applies to today's movie, Jurassic World Dominion. This is the third, and from what Chris Pratt was saying, final Jurassic World movie that had a pretty loaded cast. We have Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum coming back as their original characters, Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Dr. Ian Malcolm. Bryce Dallas Howard, of course, came back as Claire. Chris Pratt as Owen Grady. And Isabella Sermon comes back as Macy Lockwood from the second movie. We even get a little cameo and spot for Omar Sy from the first Jurassic World movie that was one of Owen's partner park members, which I really did enjoy that little callback and how they didn't, if you didn't know who it was, that's perfectly fine. But it worked really well here in the spot that it did. And it didn't feel the need to include him in a much different way. And that's one thing I like. I think like Justice Smith, Omar Sy, there was people that were from the previous two movies that you got a little bit in touch of where they were, and they let them go and live their lives and be ways that made sense. And when I say half of that disappointing and poor, I'm not too disappointed with Jurassic World Dominion. I'll be honest, but I do think it was a pretty poor movie in a lot of aspects. And I'll go into that here as I kind of break down this movie. But first off, I'm going to go over some positives. I think the first positive is Laura Dern and Sam Neill had pretty great chemistry throughout the movie. And even though I'll go into why I wasn't the biggest fan of their story per se, I felt that Colin Trevorrow worked those two into the movie in a way that made sense and gave them ample screen time to make them an important part of this movie. And I would say the same for Bryce Dallas Howard, Chris Pratt as well. Both kind of couples per se got an ample amount of screen time and a little bit of story. I mean, Chris Pratt didn't have much of a story. I do think Bryce Dallas Howard's Claire had a little bit more story with her. Um, and the way everybody worked together, I thought worked pretty well overall. I think the two standouts of the movie are actually two brand new people to this cast, and that is DeWanda Wise and Mamadou Athi. Wise playing Kayla Watts, a pilot that is a kind of black market shipper that gets involved with Pratt, and Howard's character to go on the mission they're going on, and Mamadou Athi playing Ramsey Cole, who was kind of like the assistant protege to the villain of this movie. And I have to say, those two characters by both those actors were welcome additions. I think I was a little bit, I wasn't sure about Watts early on, with Wise. But man, Mamadou Athi as Ramsey Cole, I thought was a phenomenal acting job. The way he played that assistant so well, and he gave you hints of like, is he doing what I think he's doing? I don't know. Is he doing what? And like the movie actually pays a lot of that off, and he commands the presence on all of the screen. I thought he would be a throwaway character at first, but I was so happy to see him keep coming back, and his character making decisions throughout the movie that I was happy with, I supported, and he, in my mind, is almost one of the biggest heroes of this movie. And I think if you're a casting agent out there, I really hope Mamadou Athi can get some, I'm not saying that he hasn't had good work going on, but he had some charisma and star power there that I think people will relate to on the screen, and it's something that we could see in the future because, man, Ramsey in this movie was so well done, and the way that he goes in this movie and the story and how he is as a character feels fully fleshed out, fully understanding, and his charisma was just on another level. Same with Wise with Watts. I feel like she acted on par, if not ahead of both Howard and Pratt when it comes to her charisma and having impact on the scenes, but not overdoing it. That she felt like she was, overshadowing the main cast. She felt like she just fit in perfectly fine. And I think Mamadou Athi and DeWanda Wise were two great additions to this franchise. And if this is the last Jurassic World movie, I'll be somewhat sad because those two characters were people that I actually bonded with, and I actually really would love to see them go on and see what they would do in the future, and just get more of them. Maybe Ramsey, maybe not as much because I feel like his arc was completed here in this one movie. But man, Kayla Watts was great, and DeWanda Wise as Kayla Watts definitely feels like there's more to the story that can be left off there. And I would love to see her take the lead in something else. It doesn't even have to be Jurassic related per se. Obviously it does because it's Jurassic World, but I think she could carry a movie with that character all by themselves. Maybe a lower budget, smaller scale movie, but I think that character can carry it with some of the side, the casting that the studio and the franchise clearly do well. I actually think Isabel Sermon, while she might not be on top of, as great as some of the adult actors, I think as Macy Lockwood, she does a really good job in the second half of the movie overall. And I really feel like she kind of shows the best parts of both Claire and Owen in her personality once she gets kind of out of the shell they put her, they have her set in at the beginning of the movie. Now, I do think Howard and Pratt were a little bit sidelined. Their characters didn't have as much there to grow on story wise. And Jeff Goldblum played Jeff Goldblum. I think he did perfectly. He was fine with Dr. Ian Malcolm, but I definitely felt there's a lot of parts where I'm just like, okay, he's just Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum, and I enjoyed it, so I'm not going to criticize it. But he doesn't go on. I don't think he goes above what you would, or below. He's exactly as you expected. Now let's talk about the downsides and what I think this movie, why it's poor. First off, talking about characters, and this is nothing about bad about Campbell Scott, but man, was he as a villain the worst, like a horribly written villain overall. You got Steve Jobs, Tim Cook vibes, as a head of this corporation, um, in business politics, and the whole movie is just he's doing a job. Like, he's obviously acting with how they're wanting him to be, but the character is just so bland, uninspired, and um, I would almost say preaching. And I think that's another part of this movie that I think hurt me a little bit is I don't mind movies with political messages and stuff like that because I actually agree with some of the political messages they say. I'm not the biggest fan of Apple or bigger corporations and how they're run nowadays, especially for profit, kind of trying to trick the consumer to give themselves their own profits. But you can at least be a little subtle about it. With the movie that you're having here, the first third of the movie was over the top preaching, which I wouldn't have minded if you wanted to make that what most of the movie was about, in terms of you want to make these social messagings happen. But it was not something that happened throughout the movie because it had a different plots and different things that had to go on. But we're talking about, like, preaching about corporations and Apple and being greedy, animal rights. Again, I don't. Again, these are things I believe in, but animal rights with how dinosaurs are treated and how they're used and all of that stuff. Global warming, I think, is also very well preached in this movie. A lot of social topics, I think, are heavily, heavily thrown at you in this first act, to the point that it doesn't give the story any room to breathe. And what they're going to put you on in the second half of the movie doesn't ever really come back and comment on that overall. Maybe a little bit with the whole, like, corporation style, discussion with Campbell Scott's Tim Cook impressionist, Dr. Lewis. I forget what his last name is, but he just was just a bland corporate character. That it made you really, like, took you out of the beginning part of this movie. Even in the beginning, we had probably, like, one of the, like, this is where, like, okay, I don't think they want us to take this movie. Like, this is, again, the weird, this, like, jointedness. The movie opens up with almost like a Previously On, and a very amateurist, like, soap opera style acting and giving forth way. Like, okay, they're trying to be Fast and Furious here. They're telling us, like, don't take this movie seriously. We're not really trying to tell something symbolic here. We're being kind of, ditzy at the beginning and stuff like that to make you understand that, hey, this isn't looking for an Oscar. This isn't looking for any deep thought. This is a dumb action movie with dinosaurs, which saddens me because the first Jurassic Park movie is very, very good on so many levels, but that's what Jurassic World has become. I'm like, okay, fine. And then it leads into, like, a bunch of political messaging. Again, I don't mind. I agree with it. I think, global warming can be an issue. I think animal rights are a huge, huge issue in the world with poaching animals and things like that, and abusing animals in ways that maybe we turn our eyes to. And I do think corporate, greed is a huge issue we're seeing in the world today. But when you bring these points in such a character style way, right after the start of this movie, it just makes me roll my eyes a bit. And I'm just like, what are you trying to be again? And it takes you so much of the movie that by the time when you're in the final, like, 2/3 of the act, where I think it starts getting very good in terms of a summer act movie and that Jurassic feeling, that it just makes the movie feel very poor and not well put together story-wise. I will say there are a couple scenes I very much enjoyed. There's a scene with Bryce Dallas Howard. You might have seen it in a trailer, but it's very suspenseful. And I wish they didn't show as much of the trailer in this movie with different scenes, because I knew her character was going to be fine. And I'm sure she was always going to be fine in the back of my head, but it was a very well shot and very well acted scene and it was very well done overall. Where and water was used here. Um, I think there is. So yeah, that was one good scene. I do think there's a decent scene, and you've seen the trails a little bit with in Malta that happens there. And I think the final kind of, I'd say, quarter of this movie was pretty well done, especially when the cast gets put together. Is it realistic 100%? No. These movies were never going to be realistic in the Jurassic World, type era. But I did quite enjoy how it was used, and I felt really, really great chemistry between all the characters, and just how they bantered off each other worked decently well. Um, Going into who I think will like this movie, um, if you're Jurassic fans, if you like the previous Jurassic World movies, you'll probably enjoy this one a lot. I thought the first Jurassic World movie, I did enjoy it a decent bit. I know it was a little bit of a rehash of Jurassic Park, but a little bit more action based. I felt the second Jurassic World movie was pretty bad and laughable at parts. And this one I would put decently in the middle of that. So, but if you like the other Jurassic World movies, you'll probably like this movie. If you're looking for kind of like a dinosaur-y, action-y style movie, you'll probably enjoy this as well. If you're looking for something that's gonna have a little bit deeper, it's gonna be just suspenseful in some way. It's gonna treat you as an intellectual individual in a respecting manner. Um, this one might be a matinee, or like you wait for it to come out on like a streaming service, because I don't, like I said, I don't mind. I was actually pleasantly surprised, but when you see things like Lightyear coming out next week, you have Top Gun Maverick still in the theaters, um, Thor: Love and Thunder on its way. This would be one I'd say maybe to skip if you're on that camp, if you can't go to every movie, and wait. But hey, that's just my thoughts. Um, I also have to, asterisk marks me here. This was one of the worst like groups of people I've seen a movie with, especially for opening night. I had a person like directly in front of me and to my like one seat in front and one seat to the left that was on their phone for multiple parts of the movie texting people. There was a group of like teenage girls, which whatever, I get it. It's a movie that they're gonna go see, and a few of them were texting during the movie. This is the second movie I've seen recently where somebody brought a baby to the movie, and this baby was whining, it was crying, it was it was even more than a baby. It was like a 1 or 2 year old, so it was able to kind of talk and scream back at the parents, and I'm just like, why? Or is this like, I understand if you're a parent and you want to take parts of the movies and stuff like that, but you don't go to an opening night showing like this and take kids, these kids, and when they're making these sounds, to just ignore it or start yelling at the baby and kid too, and it takes you out of the movie completely. This is one of the, like I said, this was one of the worst audiences I've been around the movie. So maybe I'm a little bit biased towards this movie because of that. But in some ways, the movie grasped me a little bit more, than anything. So maybe me having more positive thoughts is more than I would give it, because I was so annoyed at the people around me that I just wanted to watch this movie and I wanted to enjoy it. But man, like, if you're a parent, like, of a 2 to 3 year old, even like an infant, if you're gonna go to the movies, try to make it a matinee. Try to do it when there's not going to be as many people. And if they start making noises repeatedly throughout this movie, you gotta, it sucks for you. I understand you paid the ticket, you want to see the movie, but you gotta do the responsible thing for everybody else there, and take the kid out and go calm them down. I bought him, I had a movie ticket here for opening night, and it was unlimited, so I didn't pay anything. But I took my time out to take part in the movie, and there should be expectations of phones off. We're not putting them out to text it during the movie, and distract it with the little phone lights. And if you have a kid, they shouldn't be screaming, crying, and yelling over the movie itself. It was just, bad in terms of the audience. But how would this movie rank in my top 10 list of the year so far? Well, I'll be honest, it is in the top 10. I don't think this is better than Sonic, Scream, or The Lost City. I think it is kind of similar to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and Fantastic Beasts. It's around that lower tier overall. Again, Top Gun Maverick is in my top five, and I really, really, really recommend people go see that movie in theaters if it's still in there, because I do think that's one that you really, really, really would enjoy in the theaters. But this movie doesn't make my top 10 list. I'm excited to see where Lightyear comes in next week, and see if we can crack another one in the top 10. But this is my current list so far, and we'll see where this goes throughout the year. But without that, have you seen Jurassic World Dominion? What's your opinion on it? Or do you share the same sentiment as me as a movie theater goer, or am I just being a snobby person that just expects everything to be perfect when I'm at the theater and not letting people live their life? Am I taking it too seriously? Either way, feel free to leave a like or a comment down below. I'll probably see you next week for Lightyear unless I see something else beforehand. But until next time, I hope you all enjoy your time. Recommend Stranger Things a whole lot in between stuff. And I'm probably going to go enjoy The Boys tonight. So, adios and see you later.